The delivery drone set the container down with unusual care, then retreated faster than Professor Hallex had ever seen a machine move. Red warning symbols covered every surface of the metal box, each one more dire than the last. 17 biohazard classifications. Hallex counted them twice with mounting dread. Professor, you need to see this. His assistant Rella backed away from the scanning screen, her faceplates shifting to a pale blue that meant fear among her species. Hallex approached the monitor and felt his 4 hearts skip in unison. The scan showed a plant structure, but calling it just a plant seemed inadequate. Vorentine snapped jaw. He had only seen one once before, behind 6 layers of reinforced glass at a military research station. That specimen had killed 2 handlers before they managed to space it. How did this get here? Hallex's voice came out higher than intended. Smuggler intercept at the border station. They flagged it for xenobotany research instead of immediate destruction. Rella was already putting on her coat. I'm calling in sick for the rest of the term. You cannot just leave. Watch me. The laboratory emptied in under 4 minutes. Hallex stood alone with the container and his growing sense of professional obligation fighting against basic survival instinct. The university had tasked him with cataloging dangerous specimens. This was literally his job. He just wished his job didn't involve things that dissolve flesh on contact. He activated the isolation field and unsealed the container using robotic arms from behind a blast shield. The plant unfurled like something from a nightmare. Deep purple leaves lined with what looked like teeth. Tendrils that moved with predatory intelligence. The central pod pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that made Hallex's head hurt if he looked too long. A scanning probe extended toward the specimen. The snapjaw struck faster than the sensors could track. The probe disappeared into the central pod with a wet crunch. Acid hissed. Metal screamed. 3 seconds later, only a smoking stub remained. Beautiful, Hallex whispered, then immediately felt foolish for admiring something so deadly. The security system activated automatically. Containment fields snapped into place with a sound like cracking ice. Neutralization drones emerged from ceiling compartments, their weapon systems tracking the plant's every movement. The snapjaw seemed to sense them. Its tendrils coiled defensively, and the bioluminescent pulses increased in speed. Hallex pulled up the data file. Native to Vorentine Prime, a death world where everything had evolved to kill everything else. The snapjaw was apex among plants. It hunted. It planned. 3 documented cases of the species breaching containment by deliberately triggering security responses, then exploiting the chaos. Intelligence estimates suggested problem-solving ability comparable to predatory mammals, banned on 340 worlds. Possession carried mandatory imprisonment on most civilized planets. The diplomatic incident this could cause made Hallex's stomach churn, his communicator buzzed. The dean wanted a status report. Hallex stared at the plant and wondered how to explain that their prestigious university was now home to botanical terrorism. The laboratory door opened. Hallex spun, ready to order whoever it was to evacuate immediately. Instead, he found Owen Bailey, the human exchange student, standing in the doorway with a mug of something steaming in one hand and a datapad in the other. The human wore casual clothes, completely unprepared for a biological crisis. Hey, Professor, what's all the excitement about? Owen walked closer, seemingly oblivious to the flashing warnings and armed drones. Stop. Do not come any closer. Hallex extended 2 arms in a warding gesture. There is a Class 7 biological threat in active containment. Owen peered around him at the isolation field. The snapjaw immediately oriented toward this new presence, tendrils extending until they pressed against the energy barrier. The human tilted his head, studying the plant with casual interest. Huh, kinda looks like okra. Hallex blinked all 6 eyes in sequence, a Centaurian expression of complete bewilderment. Okra, yeah, vegetable. Gets all slimy when you cook it. My grandma grows it back in Tennessee. Owen stepped closer to the containment field. The snapjaw tracked his movement, tendrils weaving hypnotic patterns. This one's got more teeth, though. That is a Vorentine snapjaw. It has killed 17 documented victims. Its toxins can dissolve most organic matter in under a minute. The spores can remain viable for decades. Please back away slowly. 17? That's it. Owen sipped his drink. We've got plants back home way more dangerous than that. Hallex felt certain this was human bravado, the kind that got their species killed in statistically improbable ways. I find that difficult to believe. Seriously, poison ivy will make you wish you were dead for weeks. Giant hogweed can blind you permanently. There's this tree called manchineal where even standing under it in the rain will burn your skin off. My cousin touched one in Florida and had to go to the hospital. Owen gestured at the snapjaw with his mug. At least this guy is honest about being dangerous. Doesn't pretend to be a nice shade tree first. The plant pulsed brighter, as if offended by the comparison. Hallex found himself in the bizarre position of defending the specimen. The snapjaw is considerably more lethal than your earth flora. Maybe, but we learned to live with our stuff. My grandma keeps roses that'll tear your arms up if you prune them wrong. People still grow them anyway. Owen finished his drink and set the mug down on a lab table, completely ignoring safety protocols about contamination. So what are you going to do with it? Study it. If it survives, the specimen is already showing stress responses to the artificial environment. Hallex pulled up the biomonitor readings. Heart rate elevated. Toxin production increased 40%. It will likely expire within 72 hours without proper care. That's sad. It's just stressed out being in a new place. Owen leaned closer to the field. Can I take a look? Absolutely not. I'm good with plants. This is not a plant. This is concentrated death in botanical form. Owen shrugged, but Hallex saw the human's eyes tracking the snapjaw's movements, studying the soil composition visible through the containment field, noting the moisture levels and light exposure. The human was analyzing it like a puzzle to solve rather than a threat to escape. The snapjaw's tendrils suddenly surged forward, slamming against the energy barrier with enough force to make it flicker. Hallex jumped back. Owen didn't even flinch. Yeah, you're a feisty one, the human said softly, almost fondly. Gonna be trouble, aren't you? Hallex felt his primary heart skip again, but for a different reason. The human wasn't afraid. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it was absolutely terrifying. The observation deck filled with students within the hour. News traveled fast in academic circles, especially when it involved potential death. Hallex watched from below as various species clustered against the reinforced windows, datapads recording every movement of the snapjaw. Owen remained at ground level, circling the containment field with methodical precision. I need to get closer. The human made this sound like a reasonable request rather than assisted suicide. Request denied. Hallex triple-checked the isolation field strength for the 9th time. This organism has dissolved hardened steel. Your organic tissue would fare significantly worse. Owen tapped notes into his datapad, unbothered by the rejection. My grandmother grew something similar back home. Not identical, but same kind of aggressive defense system. Carnivorous, right? Correct. It supplements photosynthesis by consuming prey. Insects, small animals, unwary researchers. Hallex gestured at the files floating above his terminal. 17 documented fatalities. 412 severe injuries. Those are just the recorded incidents. What did they do wrong? The question caught Hallex off guard. They approached it. No, how did they approach it? Fussed the movements. Threatened it first. Used the wrong tools. Owen zoomed in on an image of the plant's tendril structure. Aggressive plants usually react to specific triggers. Figure out the triggers, you can work around them. Above them, a Delphian student called down through the observation window. Humans actually keep dangerous plants voluntarily. I researched their species after Owen joined the program. They cultivate flora that requires protective equipment just to maintain. Roses, someone else added. They have thorns that serve no evolutionary purpose except to injure. Humans bred them that way deliberately. Owen glanced up and grinned. Roses are easy. Try handling a devil's club bush. Things covered in spines that break off under your skin and get infected. Still grows wild all over the Pacific Northwest. People just work around it. Hallex felt his understanding of human psychology deteriorating rapidly. Why would evolution produce a species that tolerates such botanical hostility? Because Earth didn't give us much choice. Owen returned his attention to the snap jaw. You adapt or you die. We adapted, learned which plants were worth the effort and which weren't. The snapjaw chose that moment to demonstrate why it fell into the latter category. Its central pod opened wider than Hallex had seen before, revealing rows of thorn-like structures dripping with luminescent fluid. The toxin analysis updated automatically. Revised lethality estimate: 97% fatal on contact for most known species. Owen leaned forward, eyes bright with interest rather than fear. Beautiful design. The thorns probably inject the acid directly, speed up breakdown of larger prey. This is not beautiful. This is horrifying. Both can be true. The human walked to the other side of the containment field, studying the plant from a new angle. How long until it dies? Hallex checked the declining vitals. 48 hours, perhaps less. The soil composition is wrong. Moisture levels incorrect. It cannot sustain itself in this artificial environment. What does it need? Unknown. Florentine Prime's ecosystem is barely documented. The planet is too hostile for extensive research. We have basic atmospheric data and little else. But you can make educated guesses, right? Cross-reference with similar carnivorous plants from other worlds. Owen was already pulling up databases, fingers flying across the datapad interface. What's the native soil pH? Mineral content? Does it need specific bacteria in the root system? Despite himself, Hallex moved closer to see what the human was accessing. Owen had overlaid data from 6 different Death World ecosystems, looking for common factors. The approach was crude but logical. Even if we determine its requirements, implementing them is impossible without direct access. Hallex indicated the containment protocols. Automated systems failed. It destroyed 3 maintenance drones already. Then use manual intervention. You volunteered to be dissolved. I volunteer to try. Owen met his gaze with unsettling calm. Look, Professor, I get that this thing is dangerous, but it's also dying. You said it yourself. This specimen is crucial for antitoxin research. How many lives could that research save? The potential benefit does not outweigh the guaranteed risk. Maybe not for you. Owen set down his datapad. But I grew up on a farm. Lost count of how many times I got kicked by horses, stung by bees, bit by snakes. You learn to read animal behavior. Plants aren't that different. They react to stimulus. Predict the stimulus. Predict the reaction. A voice from the observation deck shouted down. The human is insane. Do not let him near it. Owen ignored this. I can help. I know I can. But I need you to trust me. Hallex wanted to refuse. Every academic instinct screamed at him to maintain safety protocols. But he looked at the snapjaw's fading bioluminescence and remembered why he had entered xenobotany in the first place. Not to catalog death from a distance, but to understand life in all its forms. Supervised access only. Full emergency protocols active. Medical team on standby. He began entering override codes with trembling hands. And if you die, I will ensure your academic records reflect your poor judgment. Owen laughed. Fair enough. The process took 30 minutes. Medical personnel arrived with enough equipment to handle a small war. Security doubled the drone presence. Hazmat teams positioned themselves at every exit. The observation deck became standing room only as faculty joined the students. Owen stripped off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. Someone gasped at this apparent death wish. Hallex handed him standard laboratory gloves, reinforced but not full hazmat gear. This is insufficient protection, Hallex protested. Can't feel the soil properly through heavy gloves. Need to check texture, moisture, temperature. Owen flexed his fingers. I'll be careful. The containment field section lowered. The snapjaw reacted immediately, tendrils whipping toward the opening with predatory speed. Owen stepped through calmly, hands visible and empty, movements slow and deliberate. Hey there, he said softly. Let's figure out what you need. The plant struck. Hallex prepared to trigger emergency extraction. But Owen had already moved, shifting his weight with practiced ease. The tendrils missed by centimeters. The human crouched near the soil base, just outside what Hallex estimated was the creature's attack range. Good reaction time, Owen commented, as if praising a particularly clever pet. But you're tired, aren't you? Not getting what you need here. He reached toward the soil. Every observer held their breath. The snapjaw tensed, bioluminescence flickering in what might have been confusion. The human had entered its territory, but wasn't fleeing, wasn't attacking, just slowly, carefully touching the dirt near its roots. Owen brought a handful of soil to his nose and sniffed. Too alkaline and way too dry. You're from a humid environment, aren't you? Need that moisture. The plant swayed slightly, tendrils still extended, but no longer striking. Hallex realized he was watching something unprecedented. The snapjaw was curious. It was trying to understand this strange creature that refused to behave like prey. Owen stood slowly, backing toward the containment opening. I can fix this, buddy. Give me a day. We'll get you comfortable. The human exited the field. The barrier snapped back into place. Above, the observation deck erupted in shocked conversation. Hallex stared at his student. You just survived direct exposure to a Vorentine snapjaw. Barely counts as exposure. It didn't really try to kill me. Owen brushed soil from his hands. It's scared and stressed. Once it realizes we're trying to help, it'll calm down. Plants do not experience emotions. Tell that to the snapjaw. Owen grinned. Now about that soil composition. 3 days passed in a blur of soil analysis and careful observation. Owen practically lived in the laboratory, sleeping on a cot he had dragged in from somewhere. Hallex found himself keeping equally strange hours, fascinated by the human's methodology. You talk to it, Hallex observed during one late-night session. Owen looked up from adjusting a mineral supplement mixture. Helps me think. Plus, I figure if it's smart enough to hunt, it's smart enough to recognize non-threatening behavior patterns. That is not scientifically sound reasoning. Maybe not, but it works. Owen approached the containment field with his latest soil blend. The snapjaw tracked his movement but remained relatively calm. Over the past 72 hours, its aggressive displays had decreased noticeably when Owen was present. All right, buddy, let's try this mix. Got some extra sulfur compounds this time. The isolation field lowered just enough for Owen to reach through with a long-handled tool. The plant could have struck. Instead, it allowed him to deposit the new soil near its root system. When Owen withdrew, the snapjaw's tendrils immediately began working the fresh earth into its base. It is accepting the supplement, Hallex noted with amazement. Told you it was just stressed. Owen made notes on his datapad. Carnivorous plants on Earth do the same thing. They get cranky when the soil's wrong because they can't photosynthesize efficiently. Makes them more aggressive to compensate. But Earth carnivorous plants do not actively hunt. Venus flytrabs do. Sort of. And pitcher plants are basically death traps for anything that falls in. Owen pulled up images on his pad. Humans have been fascinated by killer plants forever. We've bred some species to be even more aggressive than their wild ancestors. This information disturbed Hallex greatly. Why would you intentionally make dangerous flora more dangerous? Because we can. Because it's interesting. Because some guy back in the 1800s thought it would be cool. Owen shrugged. Humans are weird about plants. We poison ourselves with them, make medicine from them, kill each other with them, and use them to say sorry after arguments. Plants are part of everything we do. The snapjaw pulsed brighter, a sign Hallex had learned meant contentment. The new soil was working. Owen noticed too and allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. You mentioned your family runs a restaurant. Hallex asked, curious about the context Owen had mentioned earlier. Farm-to-table place. We grow most of our own ingredients. My grandmother basically built the whole operation from scratch. Owen's expression softened with obvious affection. She taught me that every plant has requirements. Meet those requirements, and even the difficult ones become manageable. Ignore them, and even easy plants die. Did she teach you about plants like this? Not exactly, but principles are the same. Figure out what it evolved for, what conditions it expects, what stresses it responds to. Owen counted off on his fingers. This guy evolved on a high-humidity death world with acidic soil and probably lots of competition for resources. So it developed extreme, defensive mechanisms and efficient hunting strategies. That analysis is remarkably accurate considering we have limited data on Vorntime Prime. Context clues. Look at the structure. Owen pointed at the Snapjaw's various features. Those tendrils are designed for humid air. See how they're slightly porous? In dry conditions, they desiccate. The bioluminescence probably attracted prey in low-light conditions, which suggests dense canopy coverage. And the acid production is super efficient, which means it needed to break down food fast before competitors moved in. Hallex felt his respect for the humans' observational skills increasing. You should consider xenobotany as a primary field. Maybe. Right now I'm more interested in xenoquizin. Owen caught Hallex's expression and laughed. Relax, Professor. I'm not going to eat your research specimen. The thought had not occurred to me until you mentioned it. Now, I am disturbed. Fair. Owen checked the Snapjaw's vitals on the monitor. All readings had stabilized in the healthy range. You know, back on Earth, there are tons of plants that are technically poisonous, but humans figure out how to eat them anyway. Why would you consume poison? Because it tastes good? Or it's nutritious? Or sometimes just because it's there and we're hungry? Owen pulled up another database. Cassava root is full of cyanide compounds. Processing it wrong can kill you. But it's a staple food for over 500 million humans. Rhubarb leaves are toxic, but the stalks are fine if you cook them right. Kidney beans need to be boiled at specific temperatures, or they'll make you sick. This seems unnecessarily complicated. Humans are unnecessarily complicated. We take simple things and make them harder for no good reason. Owen approached the containment field again, this time carrying a water mister. But we also take hard things and figure out how to make them work. Like this guy. He activated the mister, creating a fine humid cloud inside the containment area. The Snapjaw's response was immediate and dramatic. Its tendrils extended fully, leaves spreading to catch maximum moisture. The bioluminescence shifted to a warm amber color. It is pleased, Hallex said, startled to be ascribing emotions to a plant. Very pleased. Look at how it's opening up. This is what it needed all along. Owen increased the humidity gradually, monitoring the plant's reaction. Probably used to getting moisture from fog or morning dew on Vorntime Prime. Over the next hour, they fine-tuned the environment together. Hallex provided scientific measurements, while Owen interpreted the plant's behavioral responses. The Snapjaw became increasingly calm, its aggressive posturing completely absent. I want to try something, Owen said eventually. That phrase from you causes me significant anxiety. Nothing dangerous, just trust building. Owen entered the containment area again, moving with his characteristic slow confidence. The Snapjaw oriented toward him, but made no aggressive movements. He crouched at the edge of its attack range and simply waited. What are you doing? Hallex asked, letting it get used to me. Same thing you do with a nervous animal. It is not an animal. Tell that to the Snapjaw. They sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Hallex reviewed research data, while Owen remained motionless near the plant. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, the Snapjaw's tendrils lowered their defensive posture. One tendril extended slowly toward Owen, moving with exploratory caution rather than predatory intent. Do not move, Hallex warned. Wasn't planning on it. The tendril touched Owen's shoulder, light as breath. The plant paused, as if processing this new information. Then it withdrew, curling back to a neutral position. Owen stood carefully. We're good. It knows I'm not food, and I'm not a threat. How can you possibly know that? Because I'm still alive. Owen exited the containment field, looking pleased with himself. Give it another week of proper care, and you'll be able to work with it directly. No automation needed. That seems optimistic. That's humans for you. Optimistic to the point of stupidity. Owen stretched, joints popping. But seriously, Professor, this plant isn't your enemy. It's just trying to survive, same as anything else. Hallex looked at the Snapjaw, now resting peacefully in its properly configured environment. The human was right. Stripped of context, removed from its native ecosystem, the plant had simply been desperate, Owen had recognized that desperation and responded with understanding rather than fear. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman, Halleck said quietly. She is. She'd probably love this guy. Try to figure out if the leaves are edible. Please tell me you were joking. Owen's grin suggested he was not entirely joking. Halleck decided not to pursue that particular line of inquiry. Some things were better left unknown. The question came 2 weeks after the Snapjaw's successful stabilization. Owen was performing routine maintenance, adjusting humidity levels and checking root health. Halleck was documenting the unprecedented cooperation between human and deadly flora when curiosity overcame his better judgment. Is this plant edible? Owen froze mid-adjustment. Slowly, he turned to face Halleck with an expression of delighted surprise. You know, I've been wondering the same thing. I immediately regret asking. No, seriously, it's a valid scientific question. Owen pulled up his datapad, already accessing chemical composition databases. I mean, I'd have to test it properly. But theoretically? Maybe. Halleck felt two of his hearts accelerate while the other two seemed to stop entirely. The toxins alone would kill most known species within minutes. Most toxins break down under specific conditions. Heat, acid, enzymatic action. Owen was fully engaged now, eyes bright with the particular excitement humans displayed when considering possibly lethal experiments. Look at the structure of the defensive compounds. They're protein-based, right? Correct. Complex protein chains that denature cell membranes on contact. Proteins denature under heat. Basic chemistry. Owen pulled up molecular models. If you apply enough thermal energy, those chains break apart. They stop being toxins and become just amino acids. That is a considerable if. Sure, but it's testable. We can run simulations, analyze breakdown points, determine safe consumption thresholds. Owen was already sketching out a research protocol. Humans do this all the time with earth plants. There are dozens of species that went from deadly to delicious once we figured out the right preparation method. Despite his alarm, Halleck found himself intellectually engaged. Provide examples. Kidney beans. Raw ones contain phytohemagglutinin, which causes severe digestive distress. Boil them properly, and they're completely safe. Cassava root has cyanogenic glycosides that break down into cyanide. Process it right, and it's a staple food. Fugu fish is technically not a plant, but same principle. The liver and organs contain tetrodotoxin that can kill you, but trained chefs serve it as a delicacy. Humans consume fish that can kill them. For the novelty, for the taste, for bragging rights. Owen shrugged. Like I said, we're weird about food. If something might be edible, we'll figure out how to eat it. Halleck accessed his own database of human culinary history and immediately wished he had not. The list of toxic substances humans had learned to consume safely was disturbingly long. Mushrooms containing deadly compounds, fruits with poisonous seeds, leaves requiring elaborate preparation to avoid liver damage. Your species has a death wish. Our species has curiosity and stubbornness in equal measure. Owen returned his attention to the Snapjaw, which seemed to be following the conversation with its usual unsettling awareness. But I wouldn't just grab a chunk and start cooking. This requires actual research. Over the next week, Owen threw himself into analysis with single-minded intensity. He collected samples with the Snapjaw's grudging cooperation, the plant having learned that minor tissue donation resulted in improved care. Each sample underwent extensive testing. Chemical breakdown under various temperatures. Toxin degradation rates. Nutritional content post-processing. Halleck found himself drawn into the project despite his reservations. The academic challenge was irresistible. Together, they mapped the exact temperature thresholds where toxic proteins became inert compounds. They identified which plant tissues concentrated toxins and which were relatively benign. This is actually fascinating, Halleck admitted during one late session. The toxin distribution follows an almost mathematical pattern. Makes sense evolutionarily. The plant wants to protect vital structures more than expendable ones. Owen highlighted a tendril section on the scan. These outer tendrils? They're basically tools. The plant can regrow them easily. Lower toxin concentration, more flexible tissue. The central pod, though? That's vital organs. Maximum toxin load. So theoretically, tendril tissue would be safer to attempt preparation. Theoretically, Owen ran another simulation. At 180 degrees Celsius, the protein chains collapse completely. The toxin becomes structurally similar to proteins in safe plants. Add in the fact that heat also kills any potential pathogens, and you've got a viable preparation method. Viable does not mean safe. No, but it means possible. Owen looked at the snap jaw, which had grown another 6 inches since stabilizing. The plant was thriving under proper care, producing new growth regularly. One small cutting, just to test the theory. Absolutely not. Professor, we've already done 90% of the work. The analysis is solid. The science is sound. Owen pulled up comparison studies. Look at these similar toxic plants from other worlds. 3 of them are now cultivated food crops after proper preparation methods were developed. We could be documenting the same thing here. Alex wanted to refuse. Should have refused. But he looked at their research data and saw Owen was right. The science was sound. The testing had been thorough. This could be genuinely significant xenobotanical research. Full safety protocols, he heard himself say. Medical team, standing by. You test nothing without complete toxicology clearance. Obviously, and I am documenting my objections for the record, wouldn't have it any other way. Owen grinned and immediately began drafting formal research proposals. The University Ethics Board took 3 days to approve the experiment. Multiple departments weighed in. Medical staff prepared for potential emergency intervention. The dean personally reviewed the safety measures twice. Finally, approval came through with so many conditions and caveats that the document was longer than most dissertations. Owen read it once, signed it, and got to work. Harvesting the sample took careful negotiation with the snapjaw. Owen spent an hour in the containment field, talking softly to the plant and explaining what he needed. Whether the plant actually understood remained debatable, but it eventually extended a tendril and allowed Owen to take a small cutting. Thank you, Owen told it seriously. I'll make this count. The cutting went immediately into analysis. Every molecule was mapped. Every potential breakdown product identified. Owen cross-referenced with every known toxic compound in galactic databases, looking for similar structures and their neutralization methods. I want to try multiple preparation methods, he explained to Alex. Boiling, roasting, frying. Different temperatures, different durations. Build a complete safety profile. They converted a biosafety kitchen into a temporary research laboratory. Owen brought cooking equipment from his apartment, tools worn smooth with use. A knife his grandmother had given him. A portable heating element that had seen better days. Basic seasonings that seemed absurdly mundane next to the deadly plant tissue they were about to process. This feels surreal, Alex admitted, watching Owen prep the cutting with professional efficiency. Most good science does. Owen began the first preparation test, monitoring temperature with obsessive precision. Heat application in 3, 2, 1. The tendril section sizzled as it hit the hot surface. Owen watched the tissue closely, adjusting heat levels according to their research data. The toxic bioluminescence faded as proteins denatured. Chemical sensors confirmed the breakdown of harmful compounds. It is working, Alex whispered. So far, Owen prepared multiple samples, each with slight variations in technique. Boiled versions, roasted versions, pan-fried versions. Each one went through immediate toxicology screening. After 2 hours, they had results. Every properly prepared sample showed 0 toxic compounds. The proteins had broken down exactly as predicted. Nutritionally, the plant tissue was remarkably dense with useful compounds. Owen stared at the final sample, a small piece of roasted tendril that looked disturbingly like grilled vegetable. We did it. The question remains whether it is palatable. Only one way to find out. Owen reached for the sample. Alex grabbed his arm with 2 hands. You cannot seriously intend to consume that. Someone has to be first. Better me than anyone else. Owen met his gaze calmly. I designed this experiment. I ran the tests. If I'm wrong, I should be the one who faces consequences. That is foolish human nobility. That's human responsibility. Owen pulled free gently. Trust the science, Professor. We did good work here. Medical scanners activated automatically as Owen raised the sample to his mouth. Hallex held his breath. The human chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, and waited. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2 minutes. The medical readouts showed normal function across all parameters. Well, Hallex demanded. Owen smiled. Tastes like asparagus crossed with artichoke. Little bitter. Needs salt. The observation room filled faster than Hallex had ever seen. Word spread through academic channels with the speed reserved for genuine scientific breakthroughs or spectacular disasters. Faculty from 17 departments crowded against the viewing windows. Graduate students jostled for better positions. Even the dean attended, looking simultaneously intrigued and horrified. Owen worked in the biosafety kitchen below, completely focused on his preparation. He had brought additional samples from the snapjaw, harvested with the same careful cooperation that had become routine between human and plant. The cutting board, knife, and heating elements looked absurdly mundane compared to the deadly biological material being processed. He moves like someone who has done this thousands of times, observed Dr. Wren, the head of biochemistry. His family operates a restaurant, Hallex explained. He has extensive culinary training. For Earth food, presumably, not for plants that dissolve flesh. The principles apparently transfer. Hallex watched Owen segment the tendril tissue with precise cuts, separating the denser core from the more delicate outer layers. Each piece went into immediate chemical analysis before preparation. The human had prepared multiple cooking methods based on the earlier successful test. Boiling at exact temperatures, roasting with controlled heat exposure, pan preparation with minimal oil. Each method was documented with the rigor of a proper experiment, which this technically was. Temperature holding at 185 Celsius, Owen reported, his voice transmitted through the laboratory communication system. Protein denaturation proceeding as expected. Toxin levels dropping to 0 in prepared samples. Medical teams stood ready with enough emergency equipment to handle mass casualties. Security had cleared 3 evacuation routes. Hallex had signed so many liability waivers his secondary hands were cramping. Owen finished the first batch and plated several small portions. Each piece looked surprisingly appetizing, the natural purple of the plant tissue deepening to a rich color under heat. He had added minimal seasoning, just salt and what he identified as black pepper, wanting to preserve the natural flavor profile. First tasting protocol begins now, Owen announced. He took a piece himself, chewed thoroughly, and swallowed. Medical scanners showed normal responses. No toxin absorption. No adverse reactions. The room held its collective breath. 60 seconds. Owen remained standing, looking perfectly healthy. He made notes on his datapad. Flavor profile is complex, he reported. Initial bitterness gives way to umami notes. Texture similar to cooked asparagus, but firmer. The roasted version has slight caramelization. Definitely edible. Actually pretty good. Hallex felt his professional skepticism warring with the undeniable data. Every sensor confirmed Owen's safety. The science was sound. The human had successfully rendered deadly alien flora into food. I am coming down, Hallex declared. The observation room erupted in protest and excitement. Several faculty members followed him. Others remained at the windows, either too curious or too cautious to approach directly. In the biosafety kitchen, Owen had prepared additional samples. He offered one to Hallex with steady hands. Your choice, Professor. No pressure. Hallex looked at the small piece of prepared snapjaw. 2 days ago, tissue from this plant could have killed him in under a minute. Now it sat on a clean plate, looking harmless. The intellectual leap required was dizzying. The toxicology is confirmed, he asked for the 7th time. Completely clear. The proteins broke down exactly as predicted. What you're holding is nutritionally dense plant matter, nothing more. Hallex picked up a sample with trembling hands. His 4 hearts beat in syncopated rhythm. He placed it in his mouth, chewed once, twice, and swallowed. The flavor hit immediately. Owen was right about the complexity. Bitterness faded into rich, savory notes his taste receptors struggled to classify. The texture was pleasant, firm without being tough. He waited for pain, for burning, for the inevitable toxin response. Nothing happened. He remained perfectly healthy. "It is good," Halleck said, shocked by his own words. "It is actually good." Owen's grin could have lit the laboratory. "Told you." Dr. Wren descended from the observation room next, followed by 3 brave colleagues. Each approached the prepared samples with varying levels of trepidation. Each tasted. Each survived. Each expressed surprise at the favorable flavor. "This could revolutionize xenobotanical research," Wren said, taking detailed notes. "How many other specimens have we classified as too dangerous to study properly?" "Dozens at least," another professor added. "Possibly hundreds if we expand to flora we've never even attempted to bring in a laboratory settings." Owen prepared more samples as word spread. Within an hour, 20 faculty members had tasted properly prepared snapjaw tissue. Medical monitoring confirmed 0 adverse reactions across all species present. The biosafety kitchen became an impromptu tasting room. Scientists discussing flavor profiles and preparation techniques with the same intensity they usually reserve for theoretical debates. The snapjaw itself seemed to observe the proceedings with its characteristic awareness. Owen had positioned a monitor showing the containment lab, and the plant oriented toward it as if watching the chaos its tissue had inspired. "Do you think it understands?" Halleck asked quietly. "I think it knows something unusual is happening." Owen glanced at the monitor. Plants on Earth respond to stimulus in ways we're still discovering. Cooperation, chemical communication, even something that looks like memory. Why should alien plants be less sophisticated? That is a disturbing philosophical question. Most good questions are. The dean approached their station, looking thoughtful rather than alarmed. "This research needs formal documentation. Full papers, replicable methodology, safety guidelines. If we are suggesting that Class 7 biological threats can be safely processed, we need ironclad protocols." "Already drafting them," Owen confirmed. "Full breakdown of temperature requirements, toxin degradation rates, preparation safety measures. Should have preliminary documents ready in a week. Make it 3 days. I want to present this at the Galactic Xenobotanical Conference next month." The dean tried to sample himself, showing more courage than Halleck had credited him with. His expression cycled through apprehension, surprise, and finally appreciation. Remarkable. Simply remarkable. As the tasting concluded, Halleck found himself alone with Owen in the kitchen. The human was cleaning his tools with practiced efficiency, treating the knife and cutting board with obvious care. "Your grandmother gave you that knife," Halleck observed, remembering the earlier mention. 20 years ago. She said every chef needs one good knife they can trust. Owen dried the blade carefully. "She'd be laughing if she could see what I just used it for." "Would she approve?" "Absolutely. She always said that food is about bringing people together. Doesn't matter if it's humans or aliens or deadly plants. If you can share a meal, you can find common ground." Owen packed his equipment away. "Today we shared food made from something everyone thought was untouchable. That's pretty special." Halleck considered this human perspective on communal eating. Centaurians consumed nutrition as a private function, efficient and solitary. The idea of food as social bonding seemed foreign, yet he could not deny its power. The faculty who had tasted the snapjaw together had connected over the shared experience. Fear transformed into curiosity, then into collegial discussion. "Your species views food as more than sustenance," he said. "Food is culture, history, identity, love sometimes." Owen smiled. "My grandmother shows affection by cooking for people. Feeding them is how she says she cares." Maybe that's part of why humans are so stubborn about turning dangerous things into food. It's not just about eating. It's about mastery, understanding, and ultimately sharing. That is unexpectedly profound. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation as the reckless human to maintain. They returned to the containment laboratory where the snapjaw rested in its properly maintained environment. The plant had produced new growth since stabilizing, its health visibly improved. Owen approached the containment field, and the plant oriented toward him with what could only be described as recognition. "Thanks for the sample, buddy," Owen said softly. "You helped make history today." The snapjaw pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, tendrils swaying in contentment. Hallex documented the interaction, noting the unprecedented cooperation between species. His research paper was going to challenge fundamental assumptions about dangerous xenoflora. But more than that, it was going to introduce the galaxy to a very human concept, that the things we fear most might simply need proper understanding and preparation. That danger and utility could coexist. That with enough knowledge and care, even deadly plants could become dinner guests rather than threats. "I should contact my grandmother," Owen said suddenly. "She's going to want the recipe." 3 months transformed everything. The research paper Hallex and Owen co-authored became the most downloaded publication in university history, breaking records set by papers on faster-than-light theory and consciousness transfer. Academic institutions across 15 star systems requested copies of their protocols. The Galactic Xenobotanical Conference extended their presentation slot from 20 minutes to 2 hours. Hallex stood in his laboratory, reviewing the flood of incoming research proposals, and marveled at how quickly perspective could shift. The snapjaw that had terrified his staff now served as the cornerstone of an entirely new field of study. Dangerous xenoflora integration, they were calling it. Owen had suggested plants that want to kill you, but taste good anyway, as a name, but the academic board vetoed that immediately. The plant itself had grown substantially. Properly cared for, it now stood nearly twice its original size, producing new tendrils weekly. Owen visited daily, maintaining the careful relationship he had built. The human talked to it constantly, explaining his day, discussing his classes, sharing casual observations about life at the university. "You are aware it cannot understand you," Hallex said during one such visit. "You don't know that for certain." Owen adjusted the humidity settings with practiced ease. "Besides, it responds better when I talk. Could be coincidence, could be something else. Why risk it?" The snapjaw swayed gently at Owen's voice, bioluminescence pulsing in what Hallex had learned to recognize as contentment. The student-plant bond had become a secondary focus of their research. Other xenobotanists were studying the recordings, trying to understand the mechanisms of cross-species cooperation, but a message alert interrupted Hallex's thoughts. Another university requesting Owen for a guest lecture series. The 17th such request this month. The human had become inadvertently famous, his approach to dangerous flora spreading through academic circles like wildfire. "You have 17 lecture invitations," Hallex informed him. "Can I do them remotely? I don't want to leave our friend here unsupervised for too long." Owen checked the plant's root system through the monitoring display. "It's finally stable. Disrupting the routine seems risky. I can maintain basic care in your absence." "You sure? Last time you tried to adjust the pH levels, it got cranky." Hallex recalled the incident with embarrassment. The snapjaw had indeed reacted negatively to his ministrations, tendrils lashing aggressively until Owen returned and calmed it. The plant had imprinted on the human in ways that continued to baffle xenobotanical theory. "Perhaps I will hire an assistant," Hallex conceded. The laboratory door opened to admit Dr. Wren and 2 colleagues from the agricultural development sector. They carried datapads loaded with proposals and questions. "We need to discuss Vorentine cultivation," Wren began without preamble. 4 agricultural worlds have expressed interest in controlled growing operations. Your protocols could transform entire ecosystems that were previously considered hostile." Owen looked up from his plant care, surprised. "You want to farm snapjaws? Among other species. Your research demonstrated that proper understanding eliminates danger. We could introduce countless valuable plants to environments where they would thrive, but were previously deemed too risky." Wren pulled up holographic displays of barren worlds. "These planets have the right conditions for aggressive xenoflora, but lack native ecosystems. Human-style cultivation could make them productive. That would require extensive safety training," Hallex cautioned. The preparation methods must be followed exactly, which is why we want Owen to head the training program. Rin turned to the human. 6-month contract, full faculty position, your choice of research assistants. Teach our people how to think like you do about dangerous plants. Owen blinked. I'm still a student. You are the foremost expert on dangerous xenoflora integration in known space. Student status is a technicality. Rin smiled. Besides, you will be teaching practical application, not pure theory. Your skill set is unique. Hallex felt conflicting emotions. Pride that his student had achieved such recognition. Concern about losing his research partner. Curiosity about what Owen might accomplish with proper resources and authority. I need to finish my degree, Owen said slowly. Your current research counts as your thesis. The board already approved it. Rin pulled up official documentation. You have enough credits. You could graduate next month if you choose. The human looked at the snapjaw, then at Hallex, then back to Rin. Can I think about it? Of course. But do not take too long. 3 other universities are preparing similar offers. After the visitors left, silence filled the laboratory. Owen returned to plant maintenance, while Hallex processed the implications. The human had arrived as an exchange student interested in alien cuisine. In less than 6 months, he had revolutionized an entire field of study. You should accept, Hallex said quietly. This opportunity is extraordinary. What about our research here? The snapjaw needs consistent care. I will manage. You have taught me adequately, despite my earlier failures. Hallex approached the containment field. This plant survives because you understood what others feared. Imagine how many other species need that same understanding. How many worlds could benefit from your perspective? Owen was silent for a long moment. It feels weird leaving, like I'm abandoning a project halfway through. You are not abandoning anything. You are expanding it. Hallex pulled up the flood of research requests still arriving daily. Look at this. Universities studying plants they previously classified as impossible to work with. Agricultural programs reconsidering entire categories of xenoflora. You started something significant, Owen, but it should not end with one plant in one laboratory. The snapjaw pulsed brighter, as if agreeing. Owen laughed and shook his head. Even the plant thinks I should go. The plant recognizes that your talents are wasted on single specimen maintenance. That's a very generous interpretation of plant behavior. They worked together in comfortable silence for another hour, finalizing care protocols and documentation. Hallex watched Owen interact with the snapjaw and recognized something profound. The human did not see a deadly organism requiring containment. He saw a living thing requiring understanding. That fundamental difference in perspective was what made his approach so revolutionary. I have a question, Owen said eventually. Why did you let me try in the first place? That first day, when I wanted to enter the containment field. You could have refused. Should have refused, really. Hallex considered this. Because you were not afraid. Or rather, you were afraid, but approached anyway. I spent my career studying dangerous specimens from safe distances, and it yielded limited results. You walked up to the deadliest plant in my laboratory and saw a problem to solve rather than a threat to avoid. I wanted to understand that perspective. And do you? Understand it. Somewhat. Humans evolved on a world that challenged you constantly. You learned to engage with danger rather than retreat from it. That engagement became cultural, psychological, fundamental to your species' identity. Hallex gestured at the thriving snapjaw. You turned this plant from a specimen to a colleague. That is not something my species would naturally conceptualize. It's not that complicated. Everything alive wants basically the same things. Food, water, safety, comfortable environment. Once you figure out what something needs, the rest is just patience and respect. You make it sound simple. Most things are simple. We just make them complicated by overthinking. Owen grinned. Though I guess that's rich coming from the guy who wanted to eat the deadly alien plant. The communications system chimed. The dean requesting a meeting. More universities with proposals. A terraforming company asking about consultation contracts. Owen's life was about to accelerate in directions neither of them had anticipated when he first walked into the laboratory 3 months ago. Whatever you decide, Halleck said, document everything. Write detail guides. Make your knowledge accessible. He paused, then added more softly, and perhaps visit occasionally. I suspect our friend will miss your conversations. Owen looked at the snap jaw, which had oriented all its tendrils toward him in obvious attention. I'll visit, and I'll make sure whoever takes over my care duties knows the routine. Plants need consistency, as do professors who have grown accustomed to their research partners. They spent the evening finalizing transition plans and reviewing protocols. The snapjaw seemed to sense change coming, its bioluminescence patterns shifting to colors Halleck had not seen before. Whether this indicated distress or merely awareness remained unclear. As Owen prepared to leave that night, he paused at the laboratory door. You know what my grandmother would say about all this? I cannot imagine. She'd say that the best recipes get shared. That keeping knowledge to yourself makes it stale. You have to pass it on, teach others, let it grow beyond you. Owen smiled. I think she'd be proud. Of both of us. Halleck watched him go, then turned to the snapjaw. The plant pulsed gently in the quiet laboratory, no longer the terrifying specimen that had arrived in a sealed container covered in warnings. It had become something else through patience, understanding, and a human's unwillingness to accept danger as a permanent state. The research papers would document the science. The protocols would ensure safety. But Halleck suspected the real lesson was simpler and more profound. Fear was not overcome through distance and containment. It was overcome through approaching what frightened you and asking what it needed. His grandmother would have approved, Halleck thought. Even if he had never met the woman, he understood her philosophy now. Food was love. Understanding was respect. And sometimes the deadliest things in the universe just needed someone brave enough to figure out the recipe. The snapjaw swayed in agreement, or perhaps just in response to the ventilation system. Either way, Halleck chose to believe it understood. Share artifacts download all Part 6 document, MD Part 5 document, MD Part 2 document, MD Part 4 document, MD Part 3 document, MD Part 1 document, MD.